And we are back. I'm Skip Murphy. I am your co-host today, and I've got Rick Olson here in studio as my co-host. We are joined by a whole flock of folks, as you can see here, but we're going to continue on with, well, you know, this is turning out to be one of those ad hoc days where we live up. Rick, hold up the squirrel. Squirrels, the ADD bloggers at GrokTALK.com. We are here because, well, we just like doing this, and we're sort of out of sorts. I think we miss Steve. Steve brings order to our little show here, and I can tell you I'm going to get whacked about the head and shoulders for bad time management here, but oh well. The whole idea is to get to the issues of the day, and we're going to go back to our good friend Jane Cormier, who is running for New Hampshire State Senate. So Jane, there's obviously a reason not just to stay involved like you had said before,
right,
but you also want to get stuff done. So what are like your top 3 issues in the Senate? And I have to imagine they're going to be different than what they were in the House.
You know what? The specific issues, I think, the fiscal conservative drive to make the government that's putting us more and more, in debt with credit downgradings and fun stuff like that, to be a real hawk on keeping the bottom line, for budgeting that's responsible, budgeting that maybe thinks outside the box. Wouldn't that be nice? And that budgeting that's not afraid to say we can't do something. We have to say no to some things, to carefully look at that stuff and help businesses, because New Hampshire should be a lot higher in in business-friendly legislation than it is right now.
Yes, and we have been falling in the economic freedom,
yes,
and in the business-friendly department over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a turnaround during Bill O'Brien's speakership, and I have to say with Bragdon's presidency,
right,
since it was just John Lynch and the Democrat in the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I turn around, there's more and more regulations being
right,
passed, and I keep saying I've been one who has signed both sides of the check, and I'm signing the back of the check right now of the payroll check, but I used to sign the front of
mm-hmm,
it as well. I got news here. There's no way I would want to start a business
absolutely
right now. It's just not worth the hassle anymore.
It's not, and one has to wonder how we think we're going to be able to keep squeezing, blood from a rock. I mean, you have to stop at some point and acknowledge that the policies you're putting into effect are not moving anything. In fact, they're impeding, and they're stopping businesses from either growing or coming into the state of New Hampshire. So economics drives everything. That's important. I tell you, the overriding factor, specifically, I'm good on, and you can check my record, good on, local control, small government bills. I'll drive hard, especially on local control in education, local control in zoning and private property rights. Absolutely. But I feel from what I saw happening in the Senate, and it's why I ran for the New Hampshire House against, our friend Peter Bolster, who, by the way, signed up again.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about people who were really Democrats earlier in the show, and put an R next to...
Yes.
Yeah, he's a veteran of the Rhino Report.
Multiple times.
Yes, yes. But there's a wonderful candidate that's going to be in my seat that is going to take care of that issue. So
now, did Peter sign up as a Republican or a Democrat?
He signed it up, from what I understand now, and I'm talking third place here, third party, because I didn't check myself, but evidently as an independent.
Oh, that'll do him well.
Yeah. No, I think Alton has been educated, so that's a good thing. But I got off. What was my point here? I got off my point. I originally ran because I was disgusted at the lack of the legislators listening to all the people that were contacting them, emailing them. And so I said, hey, I'm going to jump in there and see what's going on. Now we're at the Senate, and I have to say I'm probably not going to be tremendously welcomed for this, but that's too bad. It is so insulated in that body, okay? They have 24 people that even Republican, Democrat, throw out whatever party it is, they insulate for each other. That body belongs to us. That doesn't belong to them. And every time I sit in there, I'm astonished at the lack of seeming understanding of that fact. It's almost like they cover themselves to keep it tight within the Senate what's going on. And then bad things happen, and the folks have no idea what's coming down the pike. I really believe that. I think that the backdoor room stuff's got to go. It's 24 people, and you can make that accountable to the folks if you have some folks in the Senate that will actually start saying, hey, guys, this is what's happening. So the insulated nature of the Senate was really a large part why I'm jumped in. There's no reason to have it that way. It's not supposed to be that way.
No, and they've made it worse with Senate Bill SB 20.
Oh, what is it?
120. Yes.
120.
Well, you can't speak about anything, right?
Yes, where here we have in the New Hampshire Constitution, and I can't remember the article number, but basically they're saying free speech is necessary for the good body politic. Have the same thing in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Free speech should not be infringed upon, or shall make no law against. And they specifically were writing about the anonymous pamphleteers during the Revolutionary War and afterwards, as we were starting to say, what is it that we're going to be? And here are these chuckleheads.
Right.
And once again, it's the Republicans leading the way on a Democrat issue because Granite Rock stopped the Democrats 3 cycles ago from doing this. And it was Jeb Bradley, Sharon Carson, and Dave Booten.
Not good. And that's the insulated nature that I'm talking about. How could, in a body of 24 senators, right, how could anyone on that 24 body vote for that bill, knowing, it doesn't matter what party you're from, it's insulating people away from what the issues are. It's forcing people to stay quiet and to not have freedom to speak out on whatever it is that they want to speak out about. So that's the nature of the insidiousness of what's in. We've got to be careful of that. And the fearless thing that you're talking about, Skip, you cannot underestimate how important that is. If we do not have people get into that body politic and say, wait.
So how do you redress that?
I redress that by being a communicator, by making sure that what is coming into the vessel doesn't stay in the vessel, but is actually comes out in a way to shine light on what the discussion is that's coming up. Then you can mobilize folks to say what their piece is. In my mind, the issue, of course, the bill that you're talking about, I think it was SB 120. Mm-hmm. That bill had such a short span of time for the folks to really get involved, for the outside folks to get involved into it. Sure, we had groups like Granite Rock and others that were talking about it, but you know what? A senator should have been on that, screaming from the State House, "Look at this!" But they were all quiet.
How do you change that legislation?
Well, the first thing you have to do is let people know it's happening, and not right before the vote comes in the Senate. I mean, when that thing starts to bear its ugly head, the first thing is shine some light on it. Let people know it's coming down the pike so that you can actually mobilize and get information out. It came fast. It came fast even for the legislators that were in there, looking at it.
But now it's been signed by Governor Hassan.
Yeah,
so now what's the next step?
The next step is to get folks in there that will take care of this bad legislating stuff and these bills that are coming in. For instance, Common Core. It's in. No, it's not. It's not in. Everybody forgets that it's the folks that decide. In the last word comes from the citizenry. Now, if the citizenry is passive, they're going to get what they get. If the citizenry is vocal and has people inside the vessel that's assisting them to come up to the plate and get involved, you can make change. And it's doable. This is all doable. Having fiscal sanity is doable if you have folks inside and outside working together.
Department of Education here at the state level has said, you're going to do Common Core. Mm-hmm. How do you change that? Because the towns, we talk about local control, but when you look at it from a legal standpoint, towns and cities are nothing but political subdivisions of the state. So if the state says you have to do it, but we're talking local control, what can you do as a state senator to say, not so much?
State senator-wise, I suppose you have to repeal or you have to put stuff in that would assist school boards to opt out of this legislation. Your school board does have the power to say no to Common Core. We did it in Alton. We took a 5-0 agreement that they were going to accept Common Core sight unseen in 2010. And this in 2013, we changed the school board numbers. We gave them 3 different meetings where we went and we educated them on Common Core, and they voted out Common Core in Alton. They've done it in Wakefield. They've done it in Manchester. They've done it in a couple of other communities. So you can vote it out. Now you have to get the standards that you're going to follow as a community, and you have to have the assessment. It's all difficult right now because the big vessel is in place, right? But you need to push back. And I tell you what, the head of the school board, Thomas Raffio, at the legislative meeting that happened maybe a couple of years ago, who knows, all these meetings kind of become one blob in your head after a while. I sat before him at a New Hampshire DOE meeting, and I told him I was appalled that this was implemented on a 4-1 vote with no input. There was public hearings where not one citizen came in because they didn't know that these public hearings were even happening. They put this into place, and then they tell us that they're, quote, he says to all the legislators that were going to speak at this little hearing, that frankly, the train has left the station. Frankly, the train has left the station. He said it 3 times. By the time I got up to speak, I was so upset by this bureaucrat telling the people that pay the salaries of New Hampshire DOE that the train had left the station. I looked at him and I said, you know what? Chair Raffio, this was my speech, and I'm not going to talk about my speech right now because I'm so incensed that you actually said 3 times that the train has left the station. Well, I tell you what, we're going to take that train and we're going to send that train right back to the station. All of the school board, New Hampshire DOE, not school board, New Hampshire DOE, were kind of, you could see that, nobody was going to speak. It was crickets. That's fine. But we did it. We didn't just say it. Alton went back and we did it. And I'm sure they were saying, yeah, but it's only one community, da-da-da-da-da. Who did it 2 weeks later was Manchester. That's not such a small community. So don't tell me that the folks don't have a voice, because I know they do. Our job is to mobilize that voice. Our job is to get them information, especially as a senator. Information before it hits, not 2 weeks before, but when it comes out, as soon as it's drafted, let's talk about it. Let's get out there. Let's go and testify, because testifying does matter.
It does. And I have to say, we have to take a break here, and my computer just crashed. Oh, this is just a lovely day, I'll tell you. One of those deals. So, sir, ma'am, and sirs, we're going to take a break here in just a minute. How will people get a hold of you? www.4janecormier.com. Oh, Jane Cormier. Jane for New Hampshire. My own website. Glad to see that you've joined the rest of us and just losing it today.
Yes, right. I'm right with the good old squirrel.
All righty. Well, folks, we'll be right back, and we've got more to talk about because the show isn't even, just barely half over. So we'll be right back after this little intermission.
Gosh.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Steve McDonald here. New Hampshire Democrats have been talking a lot lately about gun violence and background checks on law-abiding citizens, as if they actually have anything at all to do with each other. Mayors Against Illegal Guns was here, talking about background checks, again as if they had anything to do with illegal guns. All kinds of folks from all over have been coming to New Hampshire telling us we need background checks. Well, I'm here to help. We've already got them. We've also got the lowest homicide rate in the nation. You know what we don't have? New Hampshire Democrats running for office in New Hampshire on adding more background checks. This issue is so important to them, I couldn't even find the last time a New Hampshire Democrat proposed one. So I expect come 2014, they'll all be running for office on background checks. I'm Steve McDonald from Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
And indeed, you are listening to GrokTALK, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site and internet radio show, a production of GraniteRock.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. I'm joined in studio this week by Rick Olson, who, I'm going to get you back in camera there, dude. I know the next piece of equipment. I want to be able to sit here and have a little motor on my tripod so that I can move the cameras, tilt and pan. But that'll have to wait for another day.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody just tunes in to see my face.
But we are here with two other gentlemen that are returning, and Kevin Bloom, and I just blanked out.
Kirk McNeil.
Kirk. Right. And you're going to talk about what has happened during this last legislative session, what the high points are, and what the damage is.
Okay. Well, we'd like to start out with some of the bills that we worked on in at the start of the season that went well, because things kind of went down after the first year. I think that we found there was the new freshmen that came in, the new class, both the D's and the R's, were really willing to work on pro-business bills, very pro-business attitude, and they moved forward on a couple of them. And the House did a really good job with it. However, after that first year, things apparently there was a little pressure in the committees to hew the party line a little more closely, and so things went from good to bad. And a couple of the bills we worked in favor of were a bill called HB 153, and we had talked about it on the show, to legalize industrial hemp. And now, industrial hemp really isn't illegal, and all the laws that have come out about hemp, it's never been considered illegal. Even when the single treaty on narcotics specifically excludes industrial hemp. And that's one of the reasons why all the other countries basically can grow it except for the U.S. It's one of those strange exceptions. Now we're talking about hemp. There are several hundred different species of cannabis, or subvarieties.
Species, but hemp is the one that has
no THC, or very vanishingly small amounts. So it's nothing you can't smoke it.
Well, you can, but you'd get a horrible headache, and that's not it.
Okay, yes, Kirk, I'm going to ask if you can bring your microphone a little bit closer.
Is that a little bit better?
That is better.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, the attempt to legalize industrial hemp is one of those things that you look at, and once you've presented people with the facts, it's very difficult to understand why any rational person would be against it, unless they can't read.
Right. And this is a bipartisan legislation. It's been introduced since 1999. It's been during Democrat administrations as well as Republican administrations. Both sides, it's been up. It's almost always passed the House, and it almost always gets killed in the Senate. And this was no exception. In fact, even the Attorney General's office sent someone in, and they said, well, we really don't have a problem with this. And the feds won't like it, but so what? Well, things changed. And as a matter of fact, while this whole process is going on, the bill went to the Senate, and they didn't really do anything with it, and till they finally just said, we're going to send it to a study committee. So it passed the House overwhelmingly, and then went to the Senate, where they put it into a study committee and killed it. Now, since they changed it, then it had to go to a committee of conference, or could have gone, and in fact it did. But during that time period, the federal government passed the Farm Bill, which specifically legalized industrial hemp from the Fed's point of view. So now there's not even, the feds don't like it because it would have been legal, but only in states that had made it legal. So they had a chance during the Committee of Conference to actually say, oh, well, the federal law just changed. There's not even a conflict with federal law. We could let this go. Industrial hemp has grown in New Hampshire. It used to be mandatory. Back in the 1600s, the British government mandated that the colonists grow hemp because they use it for sails, they use it for rope, they use it for all kinds of stuff, and they would pay the colonists to grow hemp. So you definitely would do that. In fact, one of the first things the British did during the Revolutionary War in 1775, as a matter of fact, right before the Revolutionary War, is they banned the growing of hemp because they didn't want the colonists to have any. So the first thing the colonists did, of course, is start growing hemp. That was just the way it was.
It's just crazy that we can't have it here in New Hampshire. And one of the strange things about it is, you'll wind up talking to people sometimes, and they'll say, well, I don't know that hemp would be such a great product. I don't know that we'd use that much of it. We import most of our hemp to the United States right now from Canada and China. And, if the Canadian growing season is worse than the New Hampshire growing season, I believe everyone can agree to that. So if it grows so successfully in Canada, we absolutely should be growing it here. Also, one of the greatest, when you talk about monetized agricultural products, our dairy industry is one of the great producers here in the state of New Hampshire. And being able to feed dairy cows, or beef cows for that matter, hemp seed and hemp products actually really increases their output and increases the healthfulness of the milks, the cheeses, and the beef that you're able to get from that cattle. So we could really grow a lot of our own feed here and really improve the quality of the dairy industry here in New Hampshire. And we're just not doing it.
And that was a Sharon Carson thing. So thanks, Sharon Carson.
Who
she
does
didn't
not
like it.
She does not have a primary opponent, from what I understand.
Yes, and Dave Booten was the only person that voted to ITL the bill when it first came to committee. So,
well, you were sitting next to the person who is going to run against Dave Booten.
Yeah,
so we'll see what happens.
There's a thing. So we're hoping that we're going to bring this one back. It, of course, keeps coming up, and we'll have a different administration. I think it'll probably go through the House again. It's like I said, it's bipartisan legislation. There's no reason, like we said, for it to be opposed under either way. We had Democrats and Republicans voted to pass this bill in the House. And that was this funny thing you said about the Senate. And I just want to bring that up. Is Jane didn't really touch on this. She did say they're insular and that they all protect each other. The funniest thing is they will vote. We've talked to, on any committee, we could talk to three of them, like a couple Republicans, a couple Democrats, that agreed with us. But when push comes to shove, they'll vote 5-0 on these bills. And they'll just, okay, well, the chair doesn't like it. Well, I'll go along with them. And even though we don't agree with the bill, we're going to vote. We figured at least, we could get a couple of the Democrats to go our way. But it didn't happen.
I got to tell you, the number of times I have sat in a Senate committee and heard senators on both sides of the aisles ask what the governor's position on the bill is. I'm sorry, did you run off and join the executive branch at some point in time? Did we miss a civics lesson? What's going on here? I don't understand.
It's all interconnected, because why would they put themselves out politically if the governor is just going to veto the bill? But folks, we're going to be right back. We're going to take another quick break, and we're going to hear more about what has happened for good and bad during this last legislative session.
Turned off or tuned out recently? Can't believe what you see or hear these days? We have the show for you. It's all about taking control through understanding what's happening. Dr. Julianne Cooper, founder and president of Liberty Harbor Academy, hosts Carpe Diem, New Hampshire's first culture and education show on WSMN Radio 1590. Longtime history professor, entrepreneur, and cultural commentator Dr. Cooper will discuss what's happening in and to American culture and education. From pop culture to higher education, Dr. Cooper will help you make sense of the world. So, seize the day. Listen to Carpe Diem with Dr. Cooper every Tuesday from 11 to noon.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for GrokTALK, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK is 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com. But don't limit yourself to GrokTALK. Check us out at GraniteGrok.com. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter by searching Granite Grok.
Grok TV.